Yeah, first of all, I would like to say that I welcome a report of this nature. The reason is that, there are several instances and incidents that take place from time to time, but there's a report about them in the newspapers. Maybe there's something said about it on TV, but what has actually happened, one doesn't get to know, because after a couple of days, TV debates or TV discussions stop, newspaper reports stop, and what happened actually, one really doesn't know. Now, the government is also reluctant to appoint some kind of a commission, a judicial commission, or some other kind of magisterial commission, which will give an unbiased account of what has happened. So, it's eventually left to civil society to come out with what they believe is the truth after discussing it with several persons who've been involved, and that is what PUDR has done. They sent a team to Nuh, and they spoke to just about everybody who was involved in it, whether it was the victims, or whether it was persons who were accused, families of victims, families of accused, the lawyers who were representing the accused, and so on. So really this, forms a basis, so to speak, of what has happened. Now, if the report of PUDR is incorrect, I think they should set up a judicial inquiry and say, well, this is what actually happened. But no judicial inquiry is likely to be set up, in spite of the fact that a recommendation has been made in the report that please set up a judicial commission to look into it. I don't think that's going to be done. In any case, it's more than a year, almost a year that has passed by. So it's unlikely that anything will be done. So really, this is only the fact-finding report that is available to us today. Now, so that's the reason why I welcome it, because at least there is something which is available to tell us what actually happened. Now, there are a lot of things which have been discussed in the report. Let me start with the police, okay, because that's really the first step. Police accountability. Now, what I find, from what has been happening over the last so many years in not only in Delhi but also in other parts of the country, that the police are not accountable to anything. All right. Now, if there's a fake encounter or something, the police get away with it. The worst that happens to a police officer is that he gets transferred from one district to another. Here in this report, it has been mentioned that departmental action has perhaps been taken against somebody. In any case, the PUDR recommends departmental action, but that's not enough, because people have died. 3 people have died. 2 of them were home guards. There was another third person. So if there are deaths that are involved, transferring a police officer from one place to another really doesn't serve any purpose. So police accountability, I think, has to be there. Otherwise, these kind of things will happen, and they have been happening. And the persons who are responsible for the violence, or the persons who are responsible for preventing the violence, they get away with whatever has happened. The second aspect about police accountability, which again has been mentioned in the report, is about torture, right? They have mentioned about physical torture, about rollers being put on the thighs of some of the accused persons to make them confess and so on. Now, physical torture is one thing. Okay, now they've also found that there is no evidence of injury being caused to a person because of the use of the roller. Alright, so there are these sophisticated methods of torturing. There is also something which I describe as soft torture, which is something which is not necessarily physical, but which is something something to do with the mind, or loss of dignity, right, or some kind of trauma that is inflicted on a person. For example, and this has been mentioned over there in the report, you put 20 persons in a room, all right, and tell them that now you look after yourself. Now the room cannot handle 20 persons, okay, so where do they sleep? All right, if they want to go to the washroom or to the toilet, where do they go? Okay, what about things like food? What about keeping some persons in isolation? I think 2 persons perhaps were kept in isolation for some time. This is soft torture. I mean, you're not being beaten up, but in a sense you're being tortured, because you're having to live with 20 persons in a room which can be good enough for about 5 or 10 persons. There's not enough place to sleep. There are people sleeping on top of each other. There are persons who are having to stay awake so that the others sleep and then they get their turn to sleep. So this is something which I think also needs to be looked into on a systemic basis, that is soft torture. The second is the courts. Now I found it very nice that out of the 100 bail orders that they examined, bail was given in 85 of them. I said very good, I mean 85 is a pretty good figure. But why was the bail given? That came a few sentences later. Bail was given because there was no evidence. All right. Now, if there is no evidence, why were these persons arrested? Okay, the police know whether there is evidence or whether there is not any evidence. They also know that if the evidence is there, whether it will stand scrutiny in a court. But the idea is, let's punish this person. One day he's going to get away with it. The court is probably going to acquit him. But until then, let him spend a week, let him spend a month. In this case, several months. The incident happened in July 31st. People were arrested in the first or second week of August, released sometime in December, sometime in January, and those who could have been released, charges of UAPA were thrust down their throat. So the idea is that keep a person in jail as long as you can. Now what happens is you put in some trumped up charges, some false charges. A person is 500 kilometers away. You say that listen, you were there at the site. It's going to take him some time to prove that he was not at the site. Okay, but then the trial will go on, and the trial can go on in India, in the district courts. It can go on for years together. So until then, not only is the person in jail, but he has to go to court every now and then, to report to the court that listen, I have not run away, I am still around, I am willing to face trial and so on. That by itself is a harassment. The process is the punishment. So put up false charges, put up trumped up charges so that the police achieves their objective of harassing the person, either through incarceration or through having to go to the court from time to time. This is where I think the judiciary comes in. So the judiciary, I think, has to be alert to the fact that listen, there is no case made out, or a case has been made out which is difficult to believe. For example, at least in one case, if not in two, there were 17 FIRs on the same day. In some cases, there were 6 FIRs for the same day. Now, how can that happen? Okay, so the court has to be alert to say that listen, the story that you're putting up is a cock and bull kind of story. I'm not prepared to believe it, and there is something more to it. But what happens is that the courts are overburdened, particularly the trial courts, the district courts, they are overburdened. So there are instances, and again, PUDR has mentioned it, the person is not even produced in the court. All right. Even though video conferencing is available, they're not produced through video conferencing. I'm not very much in favor of production through video conferencing. But even if one goes through video conferencing, all right, how about producing them through video conferencing? Even that is not done. The whole idea of producing a person before the court is to give the court an opportunity to find out why is that person arrested, has that person been subjected to some kind of torture, right? If there is some visible mark on the body, if that person wants to say something, that can be done. But if you don't produce a person in court, first of all, it is unconstitutional. Secondly, you deprive that person of a chance to be able to say what he wants to say in court. Third is the bail conditions. Now, many of these people, those 85 cases that they have examined, in many of them, persons were granted bail on producing a surety of 50,000 rupees, producing a surety of 1 lakh rupees. Now, it has come out in the introductory chapter that there is a great deal of poverty in Nuh district. So to expect a person, to come out with a surety of 50,000 or 1 lakh is not easy. And if you take, multiple cases against a person, 17 cases, and you say, well, you produce 1 lakh surety in all 17 cases, 17 lakhs, where is the person going to get that kind of money from? Where is that person going to get that kind of a surety from? So bail conditions also have to be reasonable. They can be such conditions which can be satisfied by the person who has been placed under arrest. One thing which you have not looked at, but I think it's very, very important, considering that it is a constitutional right, that is free legal aid. Did the legal aid authorities come into the picture? Was the District Legal Services Authority involved? Because many of them, if they go to a lawyer, the lawyer is going to say, you give me money, right? I'm not going to appear for you free of cost. What happens in a situation like that? He says, I don't have the money. What happens? He goes to jail undefended. That's where legal aid comes in, right? And I wish you had spoken to the legal aid people to tell them that, listen, what are you guys doing? You are supposed to help the people who are indigent, okay? And if they don't have the money, appear on their behalf. Give them good legal advice, appear on their behalf, represent them in the court. Tell the court that, listen, this is, they are innocent, they've not done anything wrong. They were 500 kilometers away, or they were not at this place, and so on and so forth. Or they're being victimized. So legal aid is very, very important, but I'm afraid we're not giving the kind of importance to legal aid as we should, with the result that persons stay on in jail. Then the fourth aspect, or the third aspect, is about demolitions. Okay, now the police decide, or somebody in the administration decides, you're guilty. Okay, why are you guilty? Because I think you're guilty, so therefore I will come and demolish your house. Notice is not given. Sometimes backdated notices are pasted over there in the morning, that notice was given 15 days ago or 20 days ago, no reply. And the house is demolished. Now, there are problems. One problem is that the person has probably built the house, I'm assuming for the sake of argument, that it's on encroached land, or it's illegally constructed. Even if it is illegally constructed, even if it is on encroached land, a person is entitled to say something, maybe justify it. You think it's illegal, illegal, but, well, the person may show to you that it is not illegal. There may be some reason for it. There are instances of persons who have got completion certificates, but their house has been demolished because the police say, or the authorities say, well, I'm not going to look at the completion certificate. My job is to demolish the house. My job is not to find out whether your house is legal or not. My job is to demolish the house, so I'm here to demolish it, and I'm going to demolish it, come what may. So that's one aspect, the person is rendered homeless. The second aspect, what about the stuff inside the house? People have things, personal belongings inside the house. They may have some important papers, okay? They may have some material goods. You might have a TV, You might have, a fridge. Now you come and demolish the house, the whole thing is in a rubble. How do you, now you haven't got the TV free, you haven't got the fridge free, but it's destroyed, it's made unusable because of the rubble. So there are, these kind of problems that arise with demolitions. The timing of the demolition also is very, very important. Many years ago, I came across a situation in Mumbai. It was Bombay at that time, where the authorities had decided that during the monsoon time, that's in the month of June and July, they will not demolish houses. They will not evict persons. Why? Because where are these people going to go? The monsoon in Bombay is, pretty heavy. Where are they going to go? So whatever you want to do, either do it well before the monsoons or do it after the monsoon. So that these guys are not homeless in the rain. That is, showing some kind of compassion or some kind of empathy to the persons. But here, whether it's winter, whether it's summer, 50 degrees, whether it's winter, 2 degrees, the idea is demolish the home. What is that person going to do? Okay, if it's winter, probably the quilts are inside the rubble, under the rubble, so you can't do anything about it. So these are, all kinds of problems that persons face. The last thing that I would like to say is about the minors, juveniles. Now this is something which the police do very often, and it seems to have happened over here as well. What the police do is they arrest a person or they detain a person, produce him in court and say he's 19 years old. Okay, so if he's 19 years old, he's not a child. A child is up to the age of 18. Now, how do you prove that I'm not 19? Okay, you don't have any papers with you when you're arrested. You're not taken for a medical examination. In none of these cases, I found that, under the law, you're supposed to, before arresting a person, you're supposed to take him for a medical examination, so that in case he has some problem or something, that can be taken care of. Now here, minors are arrested. They're said that you are 19 years old. The judge looks at the person and says, yeah, maybe he's 19 years old, maybe he's 17 years old, I don't know. The police says he's 19, so he must be 19, so send him to an adult prison. Now, an adult prison is very, very different from an observation home for children. In an adult prison, you're with perhaps persons who have committed more than one offense or are accused of having committed more than one offense. But that's not necessarily the case in an observation home. Life is completely different in an observation home and in a jail like Tihar or whatever district jail they have in Nuh. But the police get away with it. That's where accountability comes in. Supposing later on it is found that this person is not 19 years old. What happens? The fact is he has spent time in unlawful detention, unlawful custody. And the police doesn't even say, sorry, we made a mistake. That's not there. Sometimes compensation is given. But does the compensation do anything to the, mental trauma that the person has undergone? Can you buy peace just because you've been given maybe a lakh of rupees? You had a loss of dignity in these kind of places. And you say, all right, doesn't matter, I won't say sorry to you. Maybe somebody will give you, some money. When that money will come to you as by way of compensation, I don't know. It may come after 1 year, it may come after 6 months, it may never come. We've had this situation in Hathras. You would have read about this girl who was gang raped and died. The newspapers say that in 2022, the government had said that we will give them an alternative accommodation because they can't live in that place. We are in 2024. Alternative accommodation has still not been given, and the Allahabad High Court is looking into it. So what's, a lakh of rupees? You say, I'm not giving it. Now, is this person going to go to court and say that, listen, you had promised me a lakh of rupees? He doesn't have the money to go to court. So these are, problems which are human problems and which are being faced on a day-to-day basis. It's not only a question of fundamental rights, it's not only a question of civil rights, it's a question of human dignity. It's a question of the rule of law. What are we looking at? Are we looking at destroying the rule of law? Are we looking at destroying human dignity of these persons? So it's in this context, please look at the report. I think you've done an excellent job, you and the others. Well, congratulations to all of you. You've highlighted just about everything. The only thing which I could find was about legal aid, free legal aid. But everything else has been highlighted, so congratulations to you for an excellent job. And I hope these instances don't happen again. But if they do, please come out with another report. Thank you and all the best.
I will only add a few general comments reflecting on the significance of this report and its implications, especially on the kind of issues that Justice Lokur has already stated on police accountability, the dimensions of torture, and so on. I will add also my congratulations. I mean, it's a great report in the tradition of great reports of PUDR with many new features. I mean, I remember who are the guilty, or the 1984 report, whose 40th anniversary of the tragedies now, and I'm sure PUDR will come up with another report on that, and the the Gujarat report, and so on. There are two distinct things about PUDR investigations into all human rights violations. One is the socioeconomic context, the history of that whole situation. Therefore, you put that particular violation, particular incident in a historical perspective, in a larger perspective, without forgetting the immediate demands. You'll always see the immediate demands. In fact, the three demands at the end, listed at the end, don't even call for a judicial inquiry into the whole thing. We have perhaps given it up because, as you alluded to, it's too late probably. Or maybe it's not too late, but there are very concrete demands on investigation into police behavior, investigation into jail treatment, and also the third one is about the
removal of the UAP.
Yes, removal of charges of UAPA, that horrendous addition in January, February of UAPA charges without any basis except the intention of keeping them in jail and punishing them, as Justice Lokur pointed out so well. So that's one thing. And the second aspect of PUDR investigations is the focus on the state. We can't make too many demands on everybody. Our report is to the democratic civil society, and public opinion makers and the overall opinion making participants in the press, the parliament, if possible, the political parties, but mostly into a whole range of democratic social movements and democratic social groups. Not just civil society. Civil society also includes the fascist, authoritarian, and so many such elements who have now appropriated the civil society name. Though originally we thought civil society was a democratic element by definition, I will not go into that theoretical question. So we demand on the state what the government of the day should do. But in our overall report, you can see the understanding of the difference between government and the state. Government and its functionaries at a particular point of time. You can see the present moment in Indian political history and the present government and its how it is using the governmental agencies. And there this particular incident and the police behavior, the forest department was present in the demolitions. Look at that. And some retroactive decisions were taken about declaring some areas as forest areas. Some notices were pasted, predated. Zubair's 3-storied building was getting demolished, and he got the information and came and said, look, I have all the papers, the approval papers. But they wouldn't listen. Anyway, so the overall context is very important. We focus on the state. You know, therefore, the most important thing to note is this report vividly records the new stage of communal state repression in India. New stage of communal state repression in India, which is characterized by a phenomenon where communal forces, and in this case in the post, on the 31st evening itself, immediately, you know, there is a provocation period, then there is the actual incident where brutalized Muslim youth got mobilized, and the provocateurs got, the Hindutva provocateurs, Brajmandal, BHP and so on, they got an excuse to react very strongly, and thereafter you see this convergence. The state agencies and the this authoritarian communal social groups, organized communal groups. So our new period of this communal state terror is state repression is characterized by a heightened degree of convergence. We have seen such convergence in the past, both in Gujarat and in Delhi riots. But this is far more stabilized, institutionalized and widespread and directed at different levels in a more systematic way. So this is a new stage of communal state repression in India with many new characteristics. There are two implications which I will highlight of this. Pudr reports are focused on the state because we have a certain theory of the state. We believe that state, yes, you know, the ruling forces of society, their aggregate power structure is the state. Whether it is media or in the parliament or the police or the army or the bureaucracy, you know, and the corporate, you know, they are all integrated. But the state is based on the constitutional framework. The constitution is a product of a liberation struggle, anti-colonial struggle. It's not the most ideal document, but ideal enough. Our preamble is a great document, and there are many very important provisions. And we believe the civil liberty and democratic rights movement in India believes that we can cite the constitutional provisions to alert all the institutions of the state, particularly the courts and the executive, particularly the police, jail authorities, courts, and of course the parliament and the lawmakers, that look, this is what the constitution says. You know, some 10 years ago, I and a group had produced a book called weapon of the oppressed, an inventory of people's rights in India, one of my collaborators had very seriously objected to the title. He said, law is not a weapon of the oppressed. Today, we have the second edition is coming out now. We have changed the title. We call it Rights of the Oppressed. Because very clearly from UAPA to MPLA, and we have an expert here, Ujjwal Singh, who writes on that. I mean, it's very, very clear. Law as a weapon of the oppressor. You see, so the duality of the state, the law, and the state process, the imbalanced duality. In other words, it is always tilted in favor of the rulers, but there are possibilities, there are spaces, and we seek to explore those spaces. And Justice Lokor, both in office, had created some space. And there are many like him, many institutions, and now we continue to carry that process. Finally, I would say that the democratic civil society, I mean, this report is a, if I use the term weapon, our Pudr reports the new knowledge that this group, through very detailed, you know, the great thing about this report is, and I think increasingly more visible now, the great minute legal acumen and observation that our lawyer friends and our present investigators are putting into our reports. Absolutely fantastic. And seeing these linkages among the various aspects. These are the two great new things. Therefore, I will conclude by saying that it's a challenge before the democratic civil society, together with the political parties, the media, the democratic elements in the media, and those who really believe in the constitution and are part of the state structure also have to think about it and see that this new repression, communalized state repression, is arrested, and we create more spaces for democratic state functioning. Thank you very much.
Lokor, if there's anything that you'd like to say at the end of this interaction?
Well, no, there's nothing that I would like to add to what I've already said, except that, you know, I think we need to inculcate in our society the need to research these kind of you know, events or instances, incidents, because like I said in the beginning, it's very unlikely that you will get the government to say that, you know, we are setting up a judicial commission. If they wanted to do that, they would have done it much earlier. So what happens? I mean, do we just, some event occurs and we just forget about it, talk about it in the newspapers, talk about it on TV, talk about it on radio, and forget about it? What about posterity? Are they supposed to know anything about it or not? So I think the idea of, you know, reports of this kind are very, very important for the current and for the future. And I would certainly say, like I said earlier, that I hope these things don't happen again. But if they do, please, you know, prepare reports.
When I said there is a new stage of this communalized state tenor, obviously there are political meaning. We have to find out. No, but we have had Delhi riots. Also, therefore, it's not only. So that's why I said you have to understand the nature of our state. What are the forces that create such power structures which then get mobilized to target certain communities and poor and in a place? No. Therefore, we would like you know, people and our state agencies to respect the constitution and rule of law. That is very important as under the constitution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.